Run, child, run wild.
Luke is just a name for one of many characters. I'm an artist. The purpose of an artist is to create art that reflects everything he or she was and is. Luke is a soul man. Birmingham will always be home as well, but I move around a lot. It's in my blood. And to be honest, I don't think I'll ever settle. Home is on the road for me. My parents are Jacqueline and Patrick. Ma was a carer with a passion for Lovers Rock. Dad was a rude boy that loved ska. I'd say I showed symptoms of having like a dissociative personality from very young. And as with all things, if they're not nurtured properly or taken care of, gradually they manifest. And you know, at some point or another in everybody's life, they've got to face these things head on. And for me, I think the turning point was when I lost my old man. It really pushed me over the edge. I'm from a family of predominantly lads. My childhood was loud. But yeah, I remember experiencing like the first 9 years of enjoyment, and then I kind of stumbled upon like the real world, hard and fast. But you know what, I always had my family, and for the most part that will always be enough. And then I met Glenn about 11 or 12 years old. Yeah, we got along straight away.
Hi everyone, I'm Glenn. First and foremost, I'm the father of 4. I've been working in the healthcare sector now for the past 12 years and recently started my own company doing web development. I first met Luke when he was about 11 years old and we used to record music in his brother's house. I remember the first time I met Luke, he was about 5 foot tall, full of enthusiasm and excitement to be in the studio. And we all knew from that first time that he touched the mic, that he had something special, even at that young age. So I'd explain Luke as a friend the same way I would as a person. Luke's that person that's always there, no matter what. Whether you tell him anything's wrong, whether he knows anything's wrong, he's always there at the end of the phone. I remember there was times when he was in jail and I was going through some troubles myself and he'd phone me just to make sure I was okay, to make sure the family was okay, to no benefit of himself.
The subject of jail itself was not entirely unfamiliar to me. Like 9 out of 10 of the lads in the family had done bird one time or another. And no one expected Luke to go to jail. I mean, they all used to tell me, Lukey won't be the one to go to jail. He's too sensible, he's too smart, and they always wanted better for me. And to be honest, I did as well. So I guess conditioning led me to jail, and the environment, and the lack of intervention as well. They're all factors that contributed to put me inside.
So growing up in Birmingham, I'd say there's plenty of opportunity or temptation to get involved into situations that may become problematic. I wouldn't really say I was involved more than the average youth that's growing up at the time. But one thing I will say is Luke was always different. Of course, he was a lot like me, a lot like his brothers, a lot like the other guys that we hung about with. But you know, he always knew better. Luke, he was always that guy I'd say, oh, you know, maybe you should look at it this way or maybe you should look at it that way. So I think he's always had the perspective that he's got now. But I think jail just opened up his eyes a bit and allowed him to see through the bullshit a bit clearer and see that his perspective was right. So I remember we went down to the Grove one time to see my dad. My dad lived in the same Grove as Luke, and my dad was telling me how someone in the Grove had got a chicken. So at first I thought either my dad had been drinking too much or maybe something strange was going on.
Right, so back in the days in my borough, anyone who had a pet had a pup, and I had a rooster. Yeah, I had a rooster. And I used to take him to the shop with me all the time. I'd hold him on my arm like this. His name was Vanilla. And I'd walk to the shop and everyone would say, what are you doing with the chicken, Luke? Like, look at me like I'm a lunatic. I say, it's not a chicken, mate. It's a rooster. So anyway, this one time Glenn's come down to mine and he's saying something like his dad's saying he's hearing a chicken in the morning and it's waking him up or he thinks he's going mad.
We went down to the bottom of the Grove to see Luke, and there he was. Luke was stood there with a rooster in his arm, like you wouldn't believe. So I asked Luke why he had a rooster. He had no reason for the rooster, but it was the rooster that was waking my dad up at 6 o'clock every morning. Thanks, Luke.
See, that's a common mistake people make about prison, that there's no such thing as liberty because you're locked up. But isn't the feeling of being liberated liberty in itself? Like, I think if you're bitter about it going in, you can expect to have a much more harder time. Jail is jail at the end of the day, and everyone who's been inside will tell you the same thing. I think once you disconnect, and in my opinion, you're far better off disconnecting with the outside world. Every day just becomes kind of like a routine. Like, you got to manipulate the time to give it the appearance of going faster, to work to your advantage. You've got to make the wing your home in some sense. Like, there've been prisons for as long as there've been prisoners. It's not natural, so you do whatever you can to make it habitable.
So I was devastated when Lukey got sent to jail. We all was, you know. I think everyone pretty much knew that he was going to get some sort of time, but no one gathered it to be 8 years or even half of that. But Lukey does as Lukey always does, and he took it within his stride, and he come out of it the other side a much more experienced and a bigger person for it. So when Lukey first got sent to jail, I think as sort of a coping mechanism, he just blocked out the outside world. He didn't speak to me, he didn't speak to family, he didn't speak to friends, which was obviously really hard, and we all really worried about him, wondered how he'd get on with jail and just whether he was okay or not. I think once he'd come to terms with things a bit more, he wrote me a big long letter, and then we'd speak every day from there. We'd share each other's music on the phone, catch up, talk about old times. It then come the time after a while that Lukey got R&R, which is where he was able to go to his mum's house. Of course, I was straight there, straight to go see my boy that I hadn't seen in a long time, and we played music, reminisced, and had a good time. So, you know, Lukey going to jail obviously put a lot of distance between us. I always had a lot of love for Lukey. You know, he was always one of my best mates out of a group of a lot of good friends. You know, but putting that distance between us really let me appreciate Luke's perspective on life and made me think about things in my own life, you know, and things that I'd gone through and things that I was doing that were probably wrong and that I need to avert. I don't think a lot of the friends from the area really stayed in touch with Luke. I know he still speaks to a few friends from Kent.
Let the world bring you down, or hide the spirit you have inside. I can see a smile, but I know the pain in your eyes. I pray to wake up to a beautiful world. I might release the promises I keep to my little girl, like Daddy have a home for you by the time you arrive.
So at that point in my sentence, I had no TV for like a year and a half. I was pretty much on basic the whole time. Anyway, this fella Leon hands me this guitar, and I pick it up, I pull it down multiple times with no avail. But I kept picking it up, that was the most important thing. And then gradually I started using my ears more than my hands, and then the songs just started to come out. Words just came effortlessly. And then every song I completed, it was like instant gratification, like a real achievement, like I've done something. I think what you do with your time determines even how you change. I made new habits, which gave me like a fresh perspective. I observed and listened to everything that I considered valuable. Jail in itself is not enough to make someone change. That's why you see a lot of the same faces in and out for. I was never gonna be that guy. That alone was enough motivation for me to begin with. Probo could give you a better insight than that, Calf.
So it was all ecstatic when we found out that Luke was getting out of jail. For the first 100 days, me, the missus, my wife and kids, we was all counting it down between us. And then eventually, as the time got closer, we started doing this with Luke. How many days today, Lukey? How many days today? And the kids would repeat the same. But oh my God, when he walked out of prison, was it such a good feeling. Wrap my arms around my boy and say hello.
I can't compare it to anything else. Especially now, I feel like I have like a purpose or a goal to achieve. I feel like that's what was missing from before, a real sense of direction. And without it, I can understand why so many people end up back inside. How do I feel? More connected is probably the best way I could describe it. There are challenges, of course, but these are more welcomed than there was before. And I think in that mind frame already, you're at an advantage. And in some ways, it's like I never left. And this is the thing, like if people really want to make a difference in their own life, there are people out there and things out there
they can use to and utilise to make that happen. Everyone always slags off probation, but at the end of the day, like if you really want to do something for yourself, you could work with them. Like I'm trying to work with Unlock and multiple others, like, and they will supply mentors and give you help from multiple agencies and organisations.
So the thing is with Luke, he just takes everything in his stride. He don't like to trouble no one, don't like to burden no one with his troubles. So if you don't ask, you don't get. Obviously we do ask a lot, but Luke knows I've got a lot going on myself. I think he's settled into society really well. You know, there's not much more he could do. He's networking for his music, he's continued on with his work placement, paying his rent, paying his bills. He really is a role model citizen.
I'm not just trying to make one good song. I'm aiming to try and trend the style of music that highlights real struggles, the ones that people don't see, the ones that people don't talk about. I want my music to connect with people on a much more profound level. My lyrics endorse self-awareness. Always try and conclude a song with like a happy ending or a positive message. In an ideal world, I want to make one song that could make an arena full of people, even just for a moment, feel the same joy that I get when I write a song or play a song. I think once I get that, I can walk away fulfilled.
So like I said, Luke has always had a gift for music. From 11, 12 years old, I've always listened to Luke's music. The way he draws you into a song and he adds an atmosphere to it, it's like nothing else is going on in that moment. Even my kids, my daughter come up to me the other day, Daddy, Uncle Lukey's on YouTube. She was ecstatic about it. So as for the future, I just plan on being the best dad and the best friend that I can be. Like I said, I just started a web development company, so I plan on growing into something more successful, which I could then take less time working to provide for my kids and more time just with my kids. As for Lukey, I expect nothing but greatness. You know, he's really talented, took the time to spend and devote himself to his music and find which direction he wants to go in. Also using that music to advocate as a voice for these kids that can't speak for themselves or that don't know no better. He's really a superstar.
As for the music, next step is set up in the studio, knock these tracks out one by one. I want to put together the album, spread the message, reach out to all these people that think they're alone. I really want to incorporate my experiences with mental health into the songs and try and put more of a spotlight onto it. Aside of the music, I want to get involved with working with younger people. I'd feel responsible if the same thing that happened to me happened to another one of these youngers, knowing that I could have said something or gave some advice, tell them it will get better with time and not just leave them when they need the help the most. We can't rely solely on these psychologists and youth workers with the amount of children going through adverse times. We all need to support where we can if we're going to make any real difference to the welfare of the upcoming generations. I'm going to do everything I can to put the world to rights at the end of the day, because my dad told me one man can make a difference and my heart's invested in this.
Run, child, run wild. I see you on the other side. I remember holding you in my arms. You saw the world for the first time. Don't let the world bring you down or hide the spirit you have inside. I can see your smile, but I know the pain in your eyes. Look.